Guys, what would you do if after renting an apartment, you found out that every midnight at exactly 12 a.m. a cry comes out from the wall in your bedroom? Story time. Ever since I and my husband moved into this apartment, every night right around midnight, I heard it, a baby crying. It wasn't loud, but it was clear, too clear. And it wasn't coming from outside or the neighbor's flats. It was coming from inside the wall beside our bed. At first, I told myself it was stress. We had just moved from another city to this city after my husband's job transfer. The house was old, the kind that groaned and whispered when the wind passed. Maybe it was rats, I thought. But rats don't cry like babies. On the third night, I shook my husband awake. Listen, I whispered. He frowned, half asleep. Then he came again, soft, weak, like a newborn calling for its mother. He sighed and hit the wall twice and told me, "It's nothing, go back to sleep, please." But I couldn't. The crying went on for 10 long minutes before it faded into silence. The next morning, I asked the woman next door if she ever heard anything strange at night. She stared at me for a long time. Then she said quietly, "You're hearing it too?" My heart skipped. "What do you mean?" I asked her. She sighed. "The people who lived there before you heard it every night. They left because of it. Nobody knows where it comes from." When I told my husband, he laughed. He said superstitious belief. But that night, the crying came again, louder this time. And then between the sobs, I heard something else. Soft, steady knocking, like tiny hands tapping from inside the wall. I stood up, shaking. "Did you hear that?" I asked my husband. He didn't answer. He was just sitting upright, eyes wide open, staring at the wall. The next morning, he called a carpenter. The man came with his tools, tapped along the wall and said slowly, "Madam, this wall is hollow. There is space inside." I told him to break it. He hesitated and said, "Oga said I shouldn't damage the property." I said, "Break it!" I shouted at him. He made a small hole near the base. Dust filled the air. When it cleared, something white showed through, wrapped in a dirty old cloth. The carpenter froze, trembling, and pulled it out. It was a baby's blanket, old and tied with string. When I untied it, the smell hit first. Then I saw it, tiny bones, a small skull, no bigger than my fist. I screamed. The carpenter ran outside. My husband stood froze, his face pale as chalk. The police came later, took pictures, gathered the remains and left. One officer said it must have been hidden there long ago, maybe before the house was even finished. That night, the house was silent, too silent. I thought it was over. But around 1:30 a.m., the crying started again. Louder, closer. I covered my ears, praying for it to stop. Then I heard a woman's voice whisper, soft and broken, "Where is my baby?" I jumped up and shook my husband. He didn't move. His eyes were open but empty. I ran to the sitting room, turned on every light and waited for morning. When I returned to the bedroom, my husband was still sitting there, staring at the wall. "She came last night," he said quietly. "Who?" I asked him. "The woman. She said I built my peace on her pain." After that, he stopped talking. By afternoon, he left for work. That evening, the police came again. They said they had traced the house history. The first owner's wife had died during childbirth in that same room. The baby was never found. The husband disappeared soon after. That night, I tried to sleep in the sitting room, but the crying came again. First from the corridor, then the kitchen, then all around me. When I opened my eyes, I saw wet footprints on the floor, leading from the hallway to my bedroom. I followed them. They stopped at that same wall that the cry is always coming from. And from inside it, a voice whispered, trembling, broken, and cold, "You took my home." That night, we packed our things and left. Never went back. They said the house still stands, old, quiet, and forgotten. But if you walk past it at midnight, you'll still hear it. A woman singing softly to her baby through the wall.